the shift towards regenerative agriculture is taking place is quite amazing. People who didn't care earlier. Someone's coming into it because of panic of climate change. Someone else is coming to it because of health. But earlier it used to be just about those who were concerned about agriculture. But now no matter what concern you have, the solution, you might be a cancer doctor, as I said, you turn to the soil. You might, because you're everywhere, as you know, you have this crazy identity politics now. And in my book, Earth Democracy, I've said corporate globalization will definitely lead to two side effects. One, it will erode democracy. And two, it will destroy culture so that you don't know who you really are, and you will be fed, just like synthetic fertilizer is a toxic product that destroys the soil organisms. Identities are getting constructed. And Samuel Huntington wrote at that time, in the Iraq War, you can only know who you are when you know who you hate. And I always said, you can only know who you are when you know who you love and what you do. If I'm a gardener, I'm a gardener. If I'm a teacher, I'm a teacher. You're Hindi teachers. That's your identity. So the positive identity grows from within and from being. The negative identity is pushed on people as a divide and rule policy. And we're having, America is so infected with that. Today in Guardian, there's an article about the civil war that's taking place, And the point is, once it seeps into society, then all the regulatory systems collapse. Because the first system of regulation is your ethics and, your own, that's the Swaraj basis. The second is society's self-regulation. Then the third is the state's regulation on top of it. But if the society's regulation has been destroyed, and there's these cultural wars that are the determining part, then, that then becomes very, very serious. So I always say, to solve the identity crisis, make everyone garden, and then they'll realize they're all part of the soil. And no one will think, I'm this party and that party, and I'm pro-life. What strange language. I have a book called Biopiracy, in which I have a chapter, The Seed and the Earth. And I couldn't believe the language of, right to life and right to choice. But both are the same, And I looked at the textbooks, and just like the gene is taken out of the Bacillus thuringiensis, if you look at the textbook of contemporary obstetrics, the fetus is always outside the mother's body. So out of that you have a construction, Here's a fetus who has different rights and the mother who has different rights, and the two are in conflict. So we've constructed the separation that you talked about, It's a constant strife. And that's why we have to move from the idea of separation and competition to the idea of interconnectedness and cooperation. And that's the base of sustainability. The GAC approved it. Now GAC is a committee. The Supreme Court has said no. No, it hasn't said no, it said stop, status quo, maintain the status quo, you cannot do the trials. My understanding of how systems work, they tried exactly the same thing in 2016. And then the Supreme Court said, no, you can't till the final hearings take place. And one season passed, and then they had to stop. Because when they rush through illegality, they need that little window of lawlessness. But when the systems that are in place of biosafety, of regulation, they come back into place. So right now, it's not, the courts haven't yet approved it. And they've always been the place from where the failed system is made to work.
And what about BT brinjal and golden rice?
So the BT brinjal was thrown out of India. I always say it's the only time a vegetable had public hearings, 7 public hearings. And our environment minister of that time, Jairam Ramesh, very brilliant, he's very clever. He called me, he called my sister, and he said, if I sit in my office, then the Monsanto lobbyists will always be more powerful than the people in the rural areas. So he said, I'm going to go to 7 regions and I'll call local college professors who do a more honest job of their science. I'll call local farmers. I'll call local consumers. And he heard. And then Monsanto's a bit stupid. Wherever they turn up, they give the same T-shirt to everyone. So you can make out those 50 guys have been brought by Monsanto. So the minute they'd enter, they did this in Johannesburg too. The minute they'd enter, Jairam Ramesh would say, "Your Monsanto guys, get out of this room." He'd throw the T-shirts out. So and he then put a moratorium. So they took it to Bangladesh, and I work with the Bangladeshi scientists and the Bangladeshi movements, and it's failing. But the problem, this is the problem of fake news, no? You could be having a really pathetic Bengan ka plant, but you can find a healthy plant and put it on CNN and put it on New York Times, and then it becomes real. And I know the people who are hired to say this, so there's no GM brinjal, and the golden rice, it's being pushed in Philippines, but it's a failure because it's never ever managed to compete with alternative sources of vitamin A. We have a lovely little book called Green Alternatives to Golden Rice, where we worked out all the other sources of vitamin A. But the other is, because it's artificially put, in a plant that has vitamin A, the vitamin A doesn't evaporate. But you artificially put the vitamin A, so it evaporates. So you have to have vacuum packing. Now can you imagine in poor communities to distribute the rice in vacuum packs all over the world? So it's and the second is you have to have the vitamin A absorbed, you have to have fat. And if you're so poor that you can't afford fat, then it's not going to be absorbed anyway. So, like I say, I've lived long enough to see how powerful pushes seem to make certain things dominant for a while. But with my age, you learn to be patient. So I was doing, I started to save seeds, and then I'd gone south to do seed collections in Veerappan's area. So no one went to Veerappan's area because, they were scared. So I said, that's exactly why there'll be lots of local biodiversity. Because the agriculture scientists haven't reached with their Green Revolution varieties. So I saw this field with 9 crops, and I'd just, I'd done the Punjab study, monoculture of rice, monoculture of wheat, monoculture of rice, monoculture of wheat, and 9 crops together, was my dream. So I said, wow, you're growing 9 crops. And this tribal gave me this discourse on, he said, the balance between the 9 planets, the 9 crops in my field, and the diversity of food that we need for our body's balance. He said it's one continuum of balance and harmony, and I have to maintain it. That's why I grow 9 crops. So then we adopted the word. I said, Navdanya, I came back to Bangalore. I'm telling my friends, I said, we're not going to call it the seed saving movement anymore. Now we're going to call it Navdanya. So my friends sat. One of them was a numerologist. I don't do all that. And he said, he worked out the numerology with the H and without the H. And he said, no, without the H is a better numerology. This is how life takes its turns. So when you ask for why is the H missing, that's why it's missing. Can you imagine if Monsanto hadn't done what it did? What would I know about the seed? What would I know about self-organizing capacity of life? What would I know about so much of my thinking today, I'd have done sustainability of the forest and the rivers, maybe, I wouldn't be doing all this. I probably would kind of be far more, I would still have done participatory research because I left IIM Bangalore because I realized the communities know much more than the academics, And I said I'll always work with communities for communities. but I'd still have, I think, done a lot of, I'd have done field work. I probably would have done a lot of participatory research. But I don't think I'd have, you know, the Navdanya wouldn't have been there. His farm wouldn't have been there. You know, so I have to say thank you to Monsanto.
Dr. Shiva, which part of the world do you see as the most progressive in terms of moving towards the organic movement? Or which part of India?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a very risky question to answer, because every time there's been a part of the world that started moving that way, the system came and destroyed it. Now, you know, the Prime Minister of Bhutan, you know, Bhutan had this gross national happiness rather than the gross national product idea. And the Prime Minister wrote to me and said, we can't imagine growing happiness any other way than growing organic. And will you come and help us? And I said, sure. So I started helping. They dislodged the Prime Minister. Sikkim became the first state in India to be officially organic. They displaced that chief minister, you know. And so, you know, I don't, there's enough unpredictability in the world to say this is the place that will show the future. You don't know which place will show the future. My state has declared by law that it will be organic. And we had our big October 16th World Food Day celebration here. And all the women from the hills had come. There are 7 states I've worked with who have made commitments to shift to organic. Kerala, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Sikkim, this place, which is the others? Bihar, Mr. Nitish Kumar. The thing is, you know, the way politics has become, it's become so short term. You know, we always said business is short term, they only look at the quarterly return. And then you got the new BlackRocks and the Vanguards that look at the second exchange, you know, per second risk. And they make money through risk. In a way, because politics is being driven that way, you know, and you cannot have an organic vision for tomorrow, you know. You can have an organic duty for tomorrow. This is what I'll do tomorrow. But the outcomes, you have to wait. So in terms of other places, to me, Mexico is amazing. They have so much pressure on them, every day, threats. But they have made a commitment that by 2024, they will phase out glyphosate and they will phase out GMOs. They will not allow GMOs. And they've been very, very, you know, courageous about it.